That was charming.
That was lovely.
Podsters, you just missed my really cute and very sexy throat clearing. It was very sexy, was it not?
You know what? It was very real.
And we're all about real here at Unmute Yourself, the podcast.
We are. We are.
You got some big stuff coming up.
I do. I do. Big wedding.
Big wedding. Big wedding. By the way, is that in Austin?
It is in Austin.
Love Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I've never been there.
You've never been to Austin, Texas?
No, I've only been to see my daughter in Dallas. So.
Oh, that's right. You'll love it. You'll love it. It's super fun. It's super fun.
Yeah.
Very, not grunge. I'm trying to think. It's very be who you are, great music scene. It's really, I just really like it. It's very expressive. I think you're going to love it. I
think so too. I'm looking forward to it. I think my husband's going to like it too.
Faux show. Do we want to drop our big news to the Podsters?
Wow. We're going to jump right in. We can.
Why not?
Sure. Why not? Let's do it.
All right. Do it. Beth, what's your big news?
Nancy and I have had some discussions, and I think that it is best for me and my plan for life and business to leave the podcast.
Wah, wah, wah.
I know. But these are the things we talk about, right?
Yeah.
About being true to yourself and how do you grow and where are you headed? And sometimes things come into your life and they work at the time, and then sometimes they don't work. So
100%. Yeah. So obviously I'm devastated. And at the same time, when Beth and I started this, I'm not going to talk about you in the third person. When we started this, we were like, hey, let's do it. And let's do it let's do it as long as it continues to be fun. So the minute it's not fun, let's regroup. So we regrouped, we tweaked, and then we had the discussion today. So I, for one, am excited for Beth because it means when one door closes, another one opens. I mean, it sounds cliche, but go.
Very true. Very true.
I think it's great. But, and also, this is not your last episode. We're going to do the final two, right?
Yes. So cool. And we didn't really allude to it last time, but when I interviewed Laura Janusik in our last episode, we had decided that we would have these 3 episodes about communication, and starting with listening was so great. I think we spend a lot of time worrying about what we're going to say. Who are we saying it to? How do they want to hear it? That we don't stop and say, well, gee, if we improve our listening skills and our attention and focus, we're going to find out exactly the answers to those questions.
Yep. Yes. And as sales, this is such a great segue to the car conversation.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Podsters, my car. So I left Beth a message probably 2 months ago. And I was a rambling message, as I often do. And I will continue to do, even though she's leaving us. Of course. And I was like, something in my car smells. This was legit 2 months ago. So this went on for a couple of weeks. My friend got in the car, who is a car specialist, and he said, that's mildew. Like, your carpets are wet. My God, my carpets are wet in the car. What happened was the sunroof, the drain got plugged, and it wasn't draining. So the carpets had water.
Yeah.
Because I live in the outer echelon of the world, it took me a little while to bring it into my car company, and it's totaled. It got totaled. It's a total loss. Didn't hear from insurance for 3 weeks. Finally heard from them. They're like, well, that's a loss. The salvage should have come and picked it up already. I'm like, first of all, great communication. Second of all, now I got to go find a car. So I go to buy a car. Wow, is that a painful experience? I never liked buying cars, and whoops. And fast forward 30 years later, I still hate to buy cars because they don't listen. Yeah. And if any of you is a car salesperson or married to a car salesperson or has a relative who's a car salesperson, I'm sure they're a great car salesperson. I would encourage you to make sure that they are listening. I'm going to give you a quick example because I did a little TikTok rant on this. Did you know I'm on the talk, Beth?
What? I
You
didn't
know I'm
know.
on the talk? Oh,
No.
yeah. I'm on the
Ah,
TikTok. Yeah. Uh-huh.
let's sing
Nancy
them through
under
it. First
Nancy
thing.
underscore Medoff. So
Yeah.
Danny went with me. So here's what I did. I went to a few dealerships, and Podsters, stay with us. There's a reason why I'm sharing the story. So I went to a few different dealerships. I was buying either a new car or a used car. My preference is to buy a used car. I don't find a lot of value in new cars. Okay, fine. So I test drive all these different cars. Some are new, some are old. I want to get a Jeep, blah, blah, blah. I walk into the last dealership where I'm going to purchase. I found the car I liked. I'm going to purchase it. And I say to Danny, why don't you come with me? Because I'm going to get irritated and I'm going to blow the deal, because that's what's going to happen, because I have zero tolerance for these guys and the situation. Let me go ask my manager. And then they come back and they write it like in a hermetically sealed envelope. And, oh, well, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble if I give you this price, like all the bullshit. So anyway, we go in and I say to Danny, first of all, thanks for coming with me. And second of all, I want to make sure that we're clear, that he's clear, that I am the decision maker. So Danny's like, yeah, it's all you, babe. All you, babe. I'm here to keep you in check. I'm like, okay, great. So I asked the guy a question who's selling me the car, and he proceeds to give the answer to Danny.
Oh,
So I'm like, okay. And I say, okay. So I ask the next question, and I'm like, this is important to me. So this is important to me, right? I'm trying to give him a little clue. And he responds to Danny. So finally I say, I want to make sure that you understand what's happening here. I'm buying this car. This is my car. I'm the decision maker. And every time I ask you a question, you're answering my husband. And that's not going to work. So I need you to understand he's here for moral support. I am the person buying this car. Guy's like, oh, I totally get it, ma'am. I totally get it. Blah, 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 blah. I ask my next question. What do you think happens?
he answers to Danny.
Mhm.
Oh,
I didn't buy the car from him. I will not buy a car from him. He just blew a massive deal. I bought a brand. I ended up buying a new car. So you know how much cars cost. And I'm like, wow, dude. Like, wow, really? Really? Blew the whole thing. Blew the whole thing.
so
Because
you
he
didn't buy it from him.
no, no, nope, nope, no. And you know what? I could have easily. It would have been a lot easier for me to buy it from him. So I
Right.
went somewhere else, because I'll be damned if I'm going to let this guy put me in the back seat. Nobody puts baby in a corner. Put me in a
That's
back seat. And yep, nope. So that goes to the earlier point of listening skills. I mean, I could not have been more clear. You're going to blow this deal if you keep doing this.
right.
Didn't even know he was doing it. Couldn't help himself. So that's what you call a long ass segue to part 2 of our series, which is verbal communication, right?
Yes. Right.
Yep. Yep. So it's so interesting, because I'm like, wow, we're really still talking about this, but because I talk about it so much, I'm like I'm not sick of talking about it. I'm like, people must be sick of me talking about this, and they're not. They're not, because I get all these texts and feedback. I just tried this. I tried this instead of this. I took please out of my emails, and it really made a difference. And say this, not that. So the verbal communication is important. So I'm going to pause, because I just was on like this long rant. So Beth, when we say verbal communication to own the room, what does that mean to you?
So to me, because I was doing a little bit of reading about this, if you want to own the room, first of all, you have to be a storyteller. You have to be ready to tell a story and to have a story, but there has to be an organization and a directness. And I think that if you beat around the bush and all of those things, it really affects your credibility in the room. I think
Yep.
you need to show up and own whatever the message is. Like even today, right? We got on the podcast and you said to me, what's happening here? What's going on, right? With the podcast.
Right.
And so that was great. We had a direct conversation. It was over in 30 seconds.
Yep. Yep.
Right. But that's what people want, because I don't necessarily know, you might know this, what it's like when you're in a room and you're talking. But I know if somebody lands on your homepage, you got 7 seconds. And sometimes people have all of this stuff and it's like, they're gone. You lost them, right? Confuse, you lose is what's his name? The branding guy. Oh God, I can see his face. Donald Miller will say.
Oh
that.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
It's a good point. And what I was hearing when you were saying that, because I was practicing my listening skills, was about confidence. It all comes back to confidence. And even if you're not confident, being confident that you deserve to ask the question, or you deserve to share your message, or you deserve to tell that story. So when you say storytelling, I'm thinking about you're giving a presentation, or you're trying to make a point, or you're trying to, land a client. And at the same time, I'm thinking about, okay, confidence, even when you're not. So if I have a question, I will say, I have a question. Is now a good time to bring up my question? Rather than, excuse me, I don't know if it's appropriate, but I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
What even is that? You have a question. Why are you apologizing for having a question? I'd like to ask a question. Is now an appropriate time? So that there's a very big difference in those two scenarios, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think I just said this yesterday in a conversation with somebody that, as women, we're so used to, we were talking about asking for sales or asking for referrals from
Asking for the business. Yeah. Yep.
And it's like, I think we're so used to being the one who's asked everything that we're not used to asking. And we also feel a little unsure about needing answers because we're normally the ones who are giving answers.
So drill that down. We feel unsure about needing answers, like we're not comfortable with needing answers.
Right. Because then
Right.
why don't I have that answer? I always
Yeah.
have answers. I have the answers for everybody. Why don't I have this answer? And I think that could be it for some people.
Yep.
Yeah, I like what you said too about, you deserve to ask your question or tell your story. And whether you show up and you're nervous or not, and it's okay to be nervous. It's okay to be excited. And sometimes we have to stop ourselves and say, is it nerves? Because is it worry or is it excitement? And
Yep.
it's okay to show excitement.
Yep. And that's one of the ways I deal with imposter feeling is I take that nervous energy into excited energy, and that excited energy is contagious. You said a couple of other things as you were talking. Oh, I already forgot because I was listening, but then I forgot what I was going to say because I was so busy listening. Oh, so how would you ask for the sale? That's what I wanted to do. Let's play it out.
So we were talking about like asking existing clients
For referrals?
Yes. And one of the things I suggested that everybody seemed to like was to say, I really loved working on the project with you. And I think you feel the same. I know you were happy with your results. And I would just really be excited if I could work with more people like you. So can you please think about, I think if is a tough word too. Can you think about anybody in your circles who might benefit from working with me?
It's great. Yeah.
What's wrong
Yeah.
with that? It's like if somebody says that feels salesy, I don't think that that's salesy.
That didn't sound at all salesy to me. That didn't sound at all salesy to me. And if you're in sales, I will never forget. There is a woman I used to work with. Her name is Linda Hagopian. She might even listen to this podcast, Linda, or if you know Linda, tell her I mentioned this. I will never forget this. She would end every conversation with a client, every conversation with, who else do you think I should talk to in your organization? And they'd be like, oh, well, you should really talk to Mary in finance, or you should talk to Bobby Sue in procurement, or you should talk to so-and-so over and wherever. And she had a massive whiteboard full of contacts. And that's how she would get more contacts in the account. And I heard her every time I would walk by her office, she'd be like, who else do you think I should talk to? Or is something I say is, who else in your organization would benefit from getting to know me better? I say that as well. So it's about who else do you think would benefit from what I do or getting to know me better or whatever. That's the difference between making, the same amount of money year over year. This is either in your business or as a bonus, and blowing it out. That's the difference, is the referrals. 100%. 100%. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. And by the way, I love giving referrals. Don't you?
I love to give referrals, and I refer my past clients if I can. I refer people who, talk to me about my work and then chose not to work with me. I'll give referrals for. I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes you're just not the right person for people. But yes, I love to give referrals.
I do too. I don't know anybody who doesn't, because people want to help people. This is I do this a lot with my group coaching. Is people are like, oh, I don't want to ask. Who doesn't like to help someone?
Right.
It's wild. It's wild. While we're on the topic of words, this has been really on my radar lately.
Mhm.
I strongly believe words matter, and that's the whole platform. Words matter, particularly with yourself.
Oh, yes.
And I find myself more and more catching myself and rephrasing the conversations I have with myself. For
Mhm.
example, oh my God, I'm so slammed today,
Mhm.
versus today's going to be pretty busy. How can I make sure I still find some time for peace in my day?
Right. Yeah,
I,
you went from, like, heaviness to strategy.
right.
Yeah.
Or, um, I'm trying to think of another one. Or like, you know what? You always want to make plans with me last minute, and that just doesn't work for me. Well, actually, that's with someone else, but let's keep going with that.
Okay.
Because sorry, I'm like beep. And what I'll say is, because I just had this conversation, it's really hard for me to make plans this short term. Can we look at a date in the future? Like it, the words you choose whether or not it's a difficult conversation. You
Right.
choose whether or not if it's a difficult conversation by the words you use. So let's take the podcast discussion we just had. I could have come in here and been all like, Beth, like, what is up with you in the podcast?
That's right. That's right. You could have.
But
Yeah.
it was like, hey, like, what's going on? And this, I think, is part of the whole sales thing. Is help me understand. It's the open ended questions.
Right.
I remember when unfortunately, I had to let several people go in my years in corporate, and I would start every conversation with, "How are things going for you? Do you like what you're doing?" And 9 times out of 10, they would say, "You know what? I don't, and I need help. We need to talk." Great, great.
Right.
Yeah, I just think that the words you use matter.
Absolutely, and the tone too. I think that the tone was a big piece of what you just said, and I think you can decide, are you setting the other person up to be defensive, or are you giving them an open door? Right?
And with yourself, are you setting yourself up to be frustrated and mad and stressed? Or
Yeah.
are you allowing yourself some grace, which we all know we're very big on here? I'm trying to
Right.
think of another example. It could be something like, ugh, like, I can't believe you didn't go to the gym today. This is why you look like shit. Or you didn't go to the gym today. Maybe you can stretch, or maybe take advantage of this chill time because you're going to be back at it tomorrow. Just think we beat ourselves up, and
Yes.
it's conscious and it's subconscious, and we need to stop.
I
We need
agree.
to stop.
I agree.
What would you change when talking to yourself?
When talking to myself, what would I change? I actually think I'm pretty nice to myself, but it's taken a little while to get there.
Okay.
I think it's more for me about, like, in the moment, like, not feeling stuck by whatever it is and not feeling bad about whatever it is, and just being
Mhm.
like, "Okay, this is the situation. Where is there wiggle room for me? How can I"
Yep.
if it's something where I'm feeling less confident, do I need to go outside and get some fresh air? Do I need to text a friend? Do I what do I need to do? Or I just look for some flexibility to, like, get out of that funk mindset.
Mhm. It's the gray. It's not black and white. It's gray. Yeah. Yeah. I like that word, flexibility. That's a good one.
Yes, and what about you?
Oh, what was the question? What do I say to myself?
That, like, if yeah, when you're talking to yourself, what are some things that you do?
You know what? Somebody once said to me, "Would you why would you talk to your daughter?" I don't have a daughter, so I would think about my nieces when they were little. Would you talk to your niece like that? And that stayed with me. So if I'm down on myself or whatever, I'll say, "Would you talk to Robin or Cara, my nieces, like that?" I wouldn't, or my granddaughter, like you wouldn't. So I think I just try to catch myself. And again, it's okay. So like the holidays are coming up, right? Soon. Oh my God. Oh my God. The holidays are coming up. Oh my God. The holidays are coming up. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that anymore. It's going to be busy. It's going to be lively. Where can I make sure I find pockets for me? It's the same thing. You can sense a trend here. It's the same thing. It's reframing how you look at it, which then in turn reframes how you speak about it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and actually in our family, because we're having this wedding and we're traveling and it's probably costing more than you would normally spend to go to a wedding, I'm like, "Nobody should stress about the holidays after that." And So, like, are we going to do like a where you pick somebody's name and do some sort of,
Mm.
what the heck do you call that thing?
Secret Santa. Is that Secret
Secret
Santa?
Santa or something like that, so that everybody has less shopping and wrapping to do. Everybody has less money to spend. What are we going to do that's going to make everybody happy? So, yeah, just looking ahead. I think if you can get ahead of it, that's the biggest thing, right? Otherwise, you find yourself in the middle of it and you're like, what do I do now?
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And I know the subject is how to own the room. I think the diversion that we took there, talking about how words
Right.
matter with yourself,
Yes.
is equally as important. If you're sitting there in a meeting and or a networking event or a presentation and you're saying to yourself, this question is really stupid, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Or what if I ask this question and I look like an idiot? How do you think you're going to show up?
Exactly.
It's we do it to ourselves. We do it to ourselves.
It's very much like, and again, I think this is a thing that we've seen other people do in our lives, whether it's generationally or just other people that we know, that the second you get caught up in what does somebody else think of what I'm going to say, you think less about what do you think about what you're going to say.
I love that. I love that. I agree. I agree. And as a professional speaker, I get that all out of the way when I'm preparing. So let's talk about, because when you talk about owning a room, I'm sure a lot of people are thinking about presentations.
Right.
So the storytelling is very, very, very important, as Beth mentioned, with an organized presentation. So what I do is I'll always break it down into threes because people remember things in threes. So there's 1, 2, 3. I don't worry as I'm speaking. I don't worry about what people are thinking because I'm in the moment. I do all that worrying about what people are thinking or gonna think when I'm pulling it together. And I pull it together. I allow myself a lot of time. I run it by people. I let it sit. It usually takes me about 2 weeks to really hone
Mhm.
in on the message. And then that's out of the way. And I have the confidence when I get on stage because I already did all the work behind it. So I know that it's going to resonate.
Right.
One would hope. So then I can really just step into it and worry about, okay, how am I going to communicate this powerfully? Not what are they going to think? How can I make sure this hits people the best way? And that just comes with time and practice and preparation.
Yeah.
That's the key. But you mentioned improvising in your notes. So tell me a little bit more about
Right.
that.
Yeah. So I think that you can go in, right, to a presentation or into a meeting room or whatever and kind of expect things are going to go a general way, but you don't have control over what somebody else says
Mhm.
or asks or how they react. And so I think you have to, the more you're prepared, the more, here comes the word flexibility again, the more flexibility you have to come in and out of that outline or framework that you've created for yourself. So if somebody asks something totally off topic or something from a different angle that you just weren't expecting, you kind of have to be prepared, not kind of, you have to be prepared to handle that if you want to have the success you were planning on having with whatever you were talking about.
Absolutely. And keep in mind when something happens that's unanticipated, like if something weird happens or like your mic fails or you show up in sneakers, like I've done all of this. This has all happened. Or the slide deck doesn't work. That endears you to people. People empathize, they feel connected, they want you to succeed. So if something weird or unexpected happens, it just makes people pay more attention and it makes you memorable. It's actually a blessing when that happens.
Right.
It's like, oh great, like now I don't have to tell it, now I don't have to tell a story or I don't have to try to connect because they all feel bad for me, so I'm good. Like
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yes.
Any calls to action for verbal communication?
So I love what you asked. What are some ways that you can speak better to yourself? Like catch yourself saying things, because it's not only that you say it, it's how you feel in the moment when you say it, and it's put you in a tizzy. But then the long-term effects of always saying that thing to yourself about,
Mhm.
oh my God, you're an idiot, or why don't you know this, or you're so disorganized, or it's going to be such a busy day, I'll never get through it. Reframing can just change your mindset about yourself, which I think is the strongest pressure that you feel is from yourself. What do you think of yourself?
100%. Yes, I totally agree. I totally agree. So I think the message there, which you just stated so well, is give yourself a break
Mm-hmm.
and be mindful of how you're talking to yourself. Again, I know that we talked about this episode being about how to own the room. You can't own the room until you own your message, as Beth said. So you can't own the message until you feel good about the message. And if you talk to yourself poorly, you're not going to feel good. So
Right.
that's it.